The paratroopers are already moving. That is not a metaphor. Right now, as you are reading this, the United States 82nd Airborne Division, America's most elite rapid deployment combat force, is being ordered forward into the Middle East theater. Not a small advance team, not a diplomatic escort. The commanding general himself, Major General Brandon Tegmeyer, along with his full command element and headquarters staff, has been pushed forward by the Pentagon. Marine expeditionary units aboard the USS Tripoli are closing in. The USS Boxer is steaming out of San Diego, and thousands of American ground troops are being positioned around the Iranian coastline in what military analysts can only describe as one thing: the architecture of a ground invasion being assembled in real time. Here is what makes this moment different from every previous escalation. Less than 24 hours after Donald Trump told the world that peace talks were underway, the U.S. 20-year Treasury yield punched back through 5%. That brief exhale from the bond market and that momentary sigh of relief evaporated overnight. Two completely separate channels are now screaming the same message at you simultaneously. The military channel says escalation. The financial channel says unsustainable, and when those two signals align, history does not tend to end quietly. Hold that thought, because what I am about to show you is not just a military story. It is the story of a president who bet everything on a 4-day war, lost that bet, and is now doubling down with American lives, American money, and American credibility as the chips on the table. Let me show you exactly how we got here. Hold that thought, because that is the exact dynamic playing out in the Middle East right now. Drop your answer in the comments. Is this a strategy, or is this a man who cannot admit he lost? Let us rewind the clock to understand how fast this spiraled. Over the past 48 hours, the United States and Israel struck energy facilities inside Iran. Iran responded by hitting energy infrastructure in Kuwait and launching cluster munitions directly into the center of Tel Aviv, striking multiple areas across the city. Those are facts on the ground. But here is the detail the Pentagon is not eager to discuss in public briefings. Iranian ballistic missiles are now achieving a significantly higher penetration rate than in previous rounds. The new strategy from Tehran involves fewer launches overall. You could argue that American strikes have degraded some of their launch infrastructure. Fine. But the result is paradoxical and deeply uncomfortable for war planners. Fewer missiles in the air, more of them getting through. And when they land, the damage is worse. Iran has shifted from volume to precision. That single tactical adjustment changes the entire military calculus. It suggests a level of battlefield adaptation that nobody in Washington publicly anticipated. And it means the problem is not getting smaller, it is getting sharper. Now let me walk you through 3 receipts, because this is where the story stops being abstract and starts hitting you in the face. Receipt number 1, the ground invasion architecture. The 82nd Airborne is not a peacekeeping force. It is America's premier rapid deployment combat unit designed to seize territory under fire and hold it until heavier forces arrive. When you deploy the commanding general and his full headquarters staff forward, you are not sending a message. You are building a command structure for active operations. Layer on top of that the Marine expeditionary units aboard the USS Tripoli, the USS Boxer out of San Diego, and additional Marine units converging from multiple directions. Paratroopers positioned near the Iranian coast, amphibious assault ships closing the distance, the logistics chain that precedes a ground campaign being quietly assembled while the administration talks peace on television. There is a word for that gap: deception. This is not deterrence. This is staging. And the distinction between those two words is precisely where wars begin. Receipt number 2, Iran's asymmetric counter strategy. While Washington pours troops and hardware into the theater, Tehran is fighting a different war on different terrain. Iran now effectively controls the Strait of Hormuz. Sanctions pressure has functionally collapsed, and Iran is running a full-scale diplomatic offensive that makes the White House look reactive at every turn. The Iranian embassy in South Africa posted a car image with a toy steering wheel beside the real one, captioned to suggest Trump and the Ayatollah could steer the strait together. They followed it with a fabricated text thread showing Trump negotiating with himself. Iran's explicit negotiating position is now public. Full reparations, security guarantees, removal of American bases from the region, continued control of the strait, every ballistic missile stays. That is not a country blown off the map. That is a government that believes it is winning. Receipt number 3, the leadership replacement trap. This is the most consequential development of the entire conflict, and it is the one that exposes the fatal flaw at the core of the entire strategy. Ali Larijani, the secretary of Iran's National Security Council, was killed in U.S. and Israeli operations. The theory behind decapitation strikes is simple and seductive. Remove the leaders, weaken the structure, accelerate collapse. It is the same theory that was applied in Iraq in 2003. The same theory applied in Libya in 2011. And just like those cases, it dissolved on contact with reality. Larijani was replaced by Mohammed Bakr Zolkadr, a longtime insider in the Islamic Republic who is, by every serious analysis, significantly more extreme and significantly harder to negotiate with than his predecessor. Every leader Washington and Tel Aviv eliminate gets replaced by someone harder. Arab mediators are now publicly stating deep skepticism that any quick agreement is possible. Israeli officials are telling major outlets that a deal is, in their words, not tangible right now. The two sides are further apart today than before the first bomb fell. Trump built a machine designed to destroy Iran's leadership. Iran built a conveyor belt to replace it with something worse. That is not a miscalculation. That is a trap, and the administration walked straight into it. If this analysis is connecting dots you have not seen assembled anywhere else, you are already ahead of most people watching this unfold. Hit subscribe right now. This situation is moving faster than any single outlet can track, and you need to be here when the next chapter breaks. Now step back and look at the contrast, because this is where the real strategic picture becomes impossible to ignore. Iran absorbed the strikes on its energy infrastructure. It recalibrated its missile doctrine from volume to precision. It locked down the most critical oil choke point on Earth. It shattered the diplomatic narrative by turning Trump's peace announcements into internationally circulated punchlines. And it replaced every eliminated leader with someone more entrenched and more hardline than the last. While Washington counts body counts and issues declarations of total victory, Tehran is counting leverage points, energy control, diplomatic credibility across the global south, widening fractures among America's own allies, and the quiet, grinding confidence of a state that has decided to let the economic clock do most of the damage for them. You do not neutralize that kind of strategy by loading more paratroopers onto transport planes. You beat it by having a plan. And right now there is no evidence that plan exists. So what does this actually mean for you? The 20-year Treasury yield above 5% translates directly into mortgage rates around 7%. $4 gasoline is now the floor, not the ceiling. Every barrel of oil that cannot freely transit the Strait of Hormuz gets repriced on global markets within hours. And that repricing moves through supply chains, through shipping costs, through grocery bills, through heating costs. If you drive a car, heat a home, or buy anything that travels by truck or ship, this conflict is already in your budget. Bond markets do not trade on speeches. They trade on probability. And right now, they are pricing in a war with no resolution in sight. Meanwhile, look at how the administration is responding. Senator Rick Scott offered the complete depth of the strategic framework driving this conflict. They want to kill us, he said, so we kill them first. That is the intellectual architecture behind a deployment involving the 82nd Airborne Airborne, 2 carrier strike groups, and a Treasury yield screaming warning signals. And on Capitol Hill, a Senate hearing extracted an admission that nobody personally reviewed whether the emergency transfer of 20,000 bombs to the Netanyahu government complied with conventional arms transfer policy. 20,000 bombs, no compliance review. That is the oversight apparatus behind this war. Fast forward to where this is actually heading, because I want to give you 3 realistic paths, and I want you to hold your own prediction in your mind as I walk through them. Scenario 1 is managed de-escalation. Pressure from bond markets, from allied governments, from senior military advisors forces a quiet cooling. Trump finds a face-saving formula. A partial freeze is dressed up as victory. Peace, he declares. Peace through strength. The cameras roll, the headlines shift, and most people exhale. But even in this best case, the structural damage is already done, and it does not undo itself. Iran's leverage over the strait remains intact. Its leadership is more hardline than before the first strike. Allied trust has been fractured in ways that diplomatic handshakes cannot repair. You can stop the shooting. You cannot unteach the lesson that every government on earth just learned about what American reliability looks like under this administration. Scenario 2 is regional realignment. Gulf states and middle powers finish the calculation they have been running quietly for months. Countries once deferring to Washington begin building parallel relationships with Tehran, Beijing, and Moscow as insurance. The U.S. remains the largest military power on earth, but is no longer the unquestioned center of the regional order. Once those alternative networks form, they do not dissolve when politics calm down. The contracts follow the new routes. The strategic relationships follow. They do not come back. Scenario 3 is the one nobody wants to name out loud. Trump facing collapsing approval and a bond market that refuses to validate his narrative authorizes ground operations. The 82nd goes in. Marines hit the coast. Iran activates every proxy simultaneously. The strait shuts entirely. Oil spikes past $150. NATO allies refuse to follow. And the Atlantic Alliance cracks under the weight of a war none of them endorsed. Every deployment, every precision strike getting through, every hardline replacement in Tehran makes this more plausible than it was yesterday. Here is what I need you to sit with. The strategic position of the United States in the Middle East will not look the same after this conflict, regardless of how it ends. Even if Trump reverses course tomorrow, the lesson has already been absorbed by every government on earth. You never build total strategic dependence on Washington because Washington might wake up one morning and light everything on fire based on a 4-day plan that no intelligence agency endorsed. Iran did not start this particular chapter, but it has proven remarkably effective at ensuring that the cost of continuing it grows every single day. Not with a larger navy, not with superior air power, with geography, with leverage, with the strategic patience to let an impulsive adversary defeat himself one announcement at a time. And the questions you have to sit with are these. Did Donald Trump weaken Iran, or did he hand them the strongest strategic position they have held in decades? Is deploying the 82nd Airborne a demonstration of American strength or the clearest public admission yet that everything else has failed? And when your own bond market, your own allies, your own Senate cannot construct a coherent defense of what you are doing, who exactly is winning this war? Drop your answers in the comments. I read every single one. Subscribe because the next chapter, the ground deployment timeline, the Strait of Hormuz standoff, the bond market breaking point, is coming fast. This story is not slowing down. Do not look away. This content is commentary and analysis for informational purposes only. It does not constitute financial, legal, or geopolitical advice. Consult qualified professionals before making any decisions based on this material.